the first goal is don't blow up, right?
Yeah.
Stay in the game.
99% of it, just be on site. And if people aren't there, call them and find out what the game plan is just to keep them accountable.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, once you get to a certain level, you're no longer chasing the liquidity. You're really chasing the wealth.
Are you dreaming of building a rock-solid real estate investment business? Well, you're in for a treat. Today, we have a remarkable guest joining us, the dynamic entrepreneur and a friend and real estate expert, Robert Nichols Jr. Rob brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the table. At the age of 23, while working a job he despised, I can relate, Robert bought his first property. His journey is a testament to resilience and the triumph of learning over limitation. Specializing in hard money lending, real estate development, investment consulting, and sales advising, Robert is a true innovator in the field. But that's not all. He's also the host of the empowering podcast, The Closers Club, dedicated to help entrepreneurs and business owners turn dreams into reality. Founder of businesses like Crowd Lending, New City Investors, and Boston Trust Realty Group. Robert's flagship brand today is RLN Companies. Join us for an enlightening conversation as Rob Nichols shares important tips on how to successfully build real estate investment businesses. Let's dive into the wisdom and experience of this inspiring individual. Without further ado, let's welcome Robert Nichols Jr. to MEETUP interview. Rob, thanks for coming in. Thanks for your time and appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're definitely someone I looked up to. Getting in the game, you're a great industry leader. Tell us a bit more about you. You know, how did you start? Where's your business now? Give us a bit of an intro about you.
Excellent, Joni. Appreciate the opportunity, man. Thanks again for having me on and having me speak at your event this evening. So to kind of take it back to the beginning, I was born and raised in Dorchester. My mother immigrated here from Jamaica when she was 16 years old. Her aunt told her she was going on vacation. She had no idea where she was going. She said, "You're going to visit your other auntie, in the States." And so she basically ended up getting flown from Jamaica to Mexico, smuggled over the border with the coyotes and everything. Crazy experience. Like, what a wild ride.
Wow, yeah.
And ended up in Boston, from California. She ended up getting to Boston where her relatives and family were. And that was pretty traumatic, but, she's resilient and made it through. And I ended up meeting my dad when she was 19 and he was in early 20s. And here I am from that relationship. It all started at church in Cambridge, man. And from there, my dad was a union electrician. He ended up buying a couple properties with his brothers when he was just kind of starting the family. And we lived in one of the triple deckers in Dorchester, actually on Westfield Street. My uncle owned half. On our side, it was 2-3 families attached. So it was a 6 family and, 3 and 3. And, early on as a kid, I knew he was the landlord. I knew my uncle managed the other side and kind of, gave me a little bit of exposure to kind of what real estate was all about. But, coming up, I really, didn't gravitate to it until I got older and started reflecting on, that whole experience. And, he and my uncles ended up selling off their portfolio very early. And I remember when I was in my 20s, I always asked, why did you guys do that? You see where property values went? And that kind of was, the beginnings of me starting to get very curious about how real estate could build wealth. And then when I graduated from college, I went to UConn. I had a friend of mine I was working with at Stop and Shop at the time. It was my first job out of college, his name's Farouk Brown. He's an established real estate investor. And I never forget, we were having one of our team meetings and he walked in the room with like a 3-piece suit, had the vest on and everything. And I remember our boss was like, "Man, you look like $1 million." And he was like, "Yep, thank you very much. That's right." And so he came and actually sat next to me by chance. And he said, "Brother, I got to show you something. Take a look at this." And he whipped out a check for 10 grand. And like at the time, I'm like 23 years old, I'm like 10 grand. And, I was making $36K a year. Sure. This guy showed me a check for 10. He's a little older than me. He's like, "I told you got to get into that real estate." He had just had a close in and he was an agent on it, but he also owned properties as well. So one of his properties he sold and he ended up getting the commission from Century 21 at the time. And from that moment, I was hooked because I'm like, all right, I wanted to be successful. I wanted upward mobility. I was always kind of looking at how to build wealth. And I seen my uncle and my dad had properties and ended up selling most of them. And, I saw where those values went, right? I think they sold them for like $150,000, right?
Sure, yeah.
So like 1990, that same triple decker now, I saw it trade. I think it traded for like 1.2 a few years ago, right? So like 10x the money essentially. And so that was kind of the beginnings of me getting into real estate. And then from there, I got in my first property within a year of that meeting with Farouk. I bought a 2-family down in Taunton, probably worst property I ever bought. But at the end of the day, I just wanted that experience to get in, learn the game, and I jumped in feet first. And then from there, I got my license as a real estate agent a year later. And really, the motivation for that was the agent who represented me on my first purchase in Taunton. She made like $15,000. Again, I see all these big numbers, right? And she wasn't a good agent. She was honestly, she was like mediocre at best. And I'm like, I can definitely do better than that. And so that kind of got me going. I realized like if I wanted to build wealth, I had to find an income generating vehicle. And I looked at my real estate license as the way to do that. And so through the whole journey, I ended up, getting my license. I was still working full time, but ultimately I left my full-time job to work for a new construction company in '08, right before the crash. And that was a great experience. They hired me as a sales manager to sell 21 new construction condos in Dorchester. But as we all know what happened in '08, the market went off.
Sure.
And so with that said, they had to pivot really quick. So they pivoted and transitioned me to project manager. No experience now, but they just needed a warm body to show up every day, make sure guys were on the site, check in with the contractor and just report back. So that was kind of like how I first got into construction and entitlements because, I ended up kind of getting more involved, working with the architect directly, going to 1010 Mass Ave almost every day for like 2 years straight.
Love it.
And that really was how I got that development background and started really understanding how to get stuff approved, and just gave you a whole different dimension of real estate and how that all works. And then lastly, that company, they fought a good fight until 2010 and ended up going under. They had about a $50 million portfolio. The banks forced the sale of all the assets. And from there, they transitioned me to lending. So the main principal in the company was a commercial lender. And he kind of took me with him into commercial lending and taught me that part of the business as well as hard money. And so that's kind of the full circle of how, I learned the real estate game from, being an investor, being an agent, development, and lending. And so now at this chapter of my life, I'm really focused primarily on growing the lending business. I still own the brokerage. My wife and I do smaller development projects, but I'm primarily a hard money lender by day.
That's awesome. Thanks for that, man. That was awesome. Just seeing the full journey, an American journey, right? That's awesome.
Right, man, that's what it's all about, man. That was the fast version. There's a lot of bumps and stories and
I'm sure
wins and losses in between.
So one thing that I saw there, and it's a pattern, right, is you being thrown or maybe volunteered into new fields, jobs that you hadn't, you didn't have a background in, right? What did that teach you? Is it something that gave you kind of a mindset of, for the future? Or?
Great question, man. So I'll tell you, I think that my 20-year-old self was very cocky. Sure. Different guy in front of you now at 42 than 22, okay. Right? But, I think that, me kind of having that confidence or cockiness, call it what you want, because some of it was not well-founded, but it gave me the ability to kind of jump in and just think to myself, I'm just going to figure this out, right? You know what I say, like you talk about startups, jumping out of a plane and building the parachute on the way down or building the plane on the way down, right? Like it's the same mindset I had. I'm like, I'm just going to jump in feet first, because I think the first thing was I had passion. I really was passionate about getting into the industry and being successful. And so with that, I always said yes to any opportunity that was aligned with, where I was trying to go. Because I knew I still needed to learn a lot, but at the same time, I also knew that I felt I could figure it out just, based on my intelligence and my abilities and kind of what I was able to prove to myself at each step of the journey and kind of compounding on that. And now fast forward to now, I do realize that the most important piece is developing those skills, because once you develop that, no one can take that away from you. And so at a younger age, I didn't have that part of it, but, through the mistakes I made along the way, I was able to figure it out and kind of feel forward, as they say.
100%, yeah. No, and that's something that myself and really the company culture has the same kind of mentality of full immersion, right? I mean, I don't have to tell you that we've jumped into projects that we had no business in jumping in with. You just ask questions, you figure stuff out, right? It's full immersion. You ask questions, you get doors shut, in your face, phones hung up on you. You just try and figure it out, right? You just kind of consistency and again, me and Ennis had the same thing, the same passion, right? Doesn't matter. We've had people, not answer us every day, email, call, you just figure it out. So that's awesome. Of those experiences, anyone in particular more than others comes to mind that has been more impactful, whether it was you directly, the company going under or whatever, any one of those experiences was, still impactful to this day?
I think early on, so at my very first flip I did, me and a partner jumped in, again, feet first. I don't say head first, because if you jump in head first, you might not come back out. You know what I mean? So we jumped in feet first. And it was an okay project. It was a small little project in Mattapan, fix and flip. We bought it right on MLS. It was a foreclosure. think we paid 140 for it at the time. This was in 2009. Needed about 30K worth of work, and we didn't manage it to the best of our ability. I'll be honest. Like, we were, again, very cocky. Like, we'll do this. So we hired one of my buddy's handyman friends. He came in day one painting before you even demo.
Right.
You know, like, what are we doing right now? And it's funny. My wife is the one who came in and caught it. And she was like, what are you guys doing? Like, this guy's painting day one? And it was just a very crazy interaction. The guy, you know, ended up kind of disrespecting my wife. We had to kick him off the job. It got really crazy. But the good news was that at that moment in time, I found one of my GC buddies that I had met from the new construction company. He came in, banged that job out within 2 weeks, and we made it, you know, it was a great deal. And so the downside to that was that we became overly confident because it was just an easy win, an easy score. So we jumped from that little easy fluff and buff flip, you know, lipstick on a pig type of a deal, to a full gut, 5,000 square foot, 3-family in Dorchester, 4 floors, brick shell, like fully extensive. And so I'm gonna never forget, we bought it. This is, again, I think you saw this deal. We bought it for $80,000, man. This was like in 2009 for a 3-family in Dorchester. It's crazy, 5,000 square feet. And we had gotten 3 bids at the time. So we got 2 bids for like, I think it was like $250 each and $240 range. And then we got one guy who came in at like $80,000. And of course, the knuckleheads we went with the guy for $80,000. Man, that $80,000 was gone within the first 2 weeks. It was gone. And guess who else was gone?
The guy.
Embedded the $80K. He was out of there. And so we had to like figure it out and scramble around. And unfortunately, we took a big loss. And a lot of it, the money we had raised on that was our money, which we had to pay back. But my buddy asked me after that experience, he's like, so what are you going to do now, man? You're done. This is over, right? Like, right. I said, man, that was my Harvard education right there. That was the mindset I had. I just had that confidence and belief in myself. And so that was, for me, really a turning point. It was like, I'm not turning back. I'm obsessed with this, and I'm going to figure it out no matter what, you know, at all costs. And so
Love it.
I think that second flip, which was way beyond our skill set, it didn't kill us. It definitely made us stronger, but it was hell getting through it. But it really has allowed us to build the resilience to kind of just keep going and build what we have today. I'm glad
you brought that up because when I started hearing you about the first deal being awesome, this was going to go a different, hey, that'd be rough. It's not important, though. Those are super important. Our first deal was terrible. Took too long.
Yep.
The seller's attorney negotiated up the price, and we like dummies we agreed. And
yeah, that's how it goes, man. When you're learning.
Yeah, I mean you're eager, right? You're eager. You don't negotiate from a position of power or abundance,
right?
You know, but every step of that, and when I say every step of the business, every step of the flip, we've had a ton of learning. But I mean it's a mindset though. It's a mindset of most people when they are faced with that type of loss. They're like, all right, well, I'm done here. You know, let's wrap up. Let's go home, right?
Right.
And we've dealt with that, a lot of those, obviously. And they happen as we go into projects and different markets and different lending landscape. But you just keep going, right? You just keep going. You learn your lessons. Those are just, again, Harvard MBA, right?
That's right, man.
Or a Harvard school.
School of Hard Knocks. Yeah.
Most. It's important, though. It's important. So that's. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
One other question I had, and then we can cut this. I'm curious if you think might be helpful. I know you have a podcast, right? Closers Club.
Yes.
What is the most important thing that you've learned from that experience? Interviewing people, having those conversations, and even from the feedback from viewers, right, and people who have listened to those podcasts.
I think the most important thing I learned, Yanni, really is from the feedback, right? Because you just don't know the impact you're having. I mean, for me, the motivation behind it was to just put something out there that's positive, that shows people what's possible, to give people a blueprint to follow, whether it's from me or other guests that we have on the show. And it really inspired folks to learn and keep going and to invest in themselves. And that was the feedback I got, from a lot of folks, is like, I really love the podcast because it just keeps me going. It lets me know what's possible, shows me what other people are doing in my market, and kind of shows me there's a higher level that I can aspire to get to. And I think in today's world, sometimes like I don't hear as many people that are aspirational as when I was a kid coming up. And so, it's really put out there to really drive people to like kind of, again, look for what's possible when they put their mind to something, or if they have a little bit of a passion, this can kind of help them flesh that out a little bit more. So from that perspective, it really has been the feedback from folks that the key for them with the podcast episodes has been to just keep them going and I keep them motivated, which was pretty cool to hear, man. I really love hearing that from the people, because you just never know, right? You're like, I'm doing it with certain intentions, but you just don't know how it will be received by the folks out there.
It's crazy to think about that now. Before, like 20 years ago, there's so much content out there, right?
It's a time, man. It's a lot of noise.
That is exactly what it is. It's noise, right? So you would expect that there would be aspirational stuff. There would be people sharing their actually nitty gritty, like project details, lending, breakdown, underwriting deals. It's not. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of BS. There's a lot of, it's kind of 20 seconds or less type of, grab your attention and go to the next thing, right? So that's awesome. And and again, you're someone that we still look up to. And I've checked out a few of those episodes, and they're great. They're awesome. Like, they're actually no BS. Yeah, no, I mean, it's great content, aspirational, and just real situations, right? Real world situations. So that's awesome. What is one question that you wish other the people you are interviewing or the audience actually ask you? I'm curious.
I've been asked a lot of questions, Joni, so it's hard to say what.
So I didn't throw you off.
No. I'm meaning not from you, just in general, like over the years, the interviews, talking to folks and different things. I think the biggest thing I've learned, if I have to reflect on, what I wish people would ask, is how to scale. Because to me, that's somewhere where I felt I could have scaled a lot faster than I did and a lot larger than I did. But my energy was too spread out across multiple disciplines. Even though it was all real estate related, it was across multiple disciplines. So I think being able to understand the importance of trade-offs, the sooner you get that and understand that, and the sooner you understand kind of how money moves, it's not about going, wide. It's about going deep. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get deep on 100%, something.
100%.
Go all the way in. If you're going to be a developer, go all the way in on development, right? And really figure out how to scale that. If that's your goal, if your goal is wealth building and achieving as much as you can in one lifetime, I don't think enough people ask about that, right? They just want to know kind of what they want to know at that moment,
right.
and as opposed to kind of looking at the bigger picture relative to how are they going to structure their business for growth, but not just now, for the next 10, 20, 30 plus years, So I think that really would be the one thing I'd say I wish more folks would kind of start thinking about. But again, you don't know what you don't know, right? So people kind of just like take bite-sized pieces and small pieces of information from you, as they're kind of on their journey. But I think the sooner they can come up with a plan relative to their bigger picture goals and kind of get clear on that, the better it's going to be for them, man. Because then you can really like dig deep and make it happen.
So why watch these interviews? We've had conversations with people like Robert and other industry leaders in our market daily, weekly. We go out to lunch or coffee. This is our way of recording and sharing that information, sharing those conversations with you guys. So if you do enjoy it, definitely give us a thumbs up and like us. But more importantly, be active. Show up at the meetup. Go to our meetup events, register, and actually show up. It's free. The time commitment is going to pay off for you guys for sure. Click on the link on the show notes and the description. Like us. But yeah, again, very, very important. If you take one thing as an action item, go to our meetup, register for the next meetup. We hold these monthly, and just take action. Show up and talk to people. And this is something that I thought about as well. That's huge. I did see a pattern, and again, you have an entrepreneurial mindset, right? I do too in the past, and I've learned to reel it in and manage it. But I've had an insane focus on just everything, right? Not it wasn't even real estate at some point. So it's super important, like you said, not wide but deep, and to tie it back in. Again, you mentioned your family, your family members that were buying triple deckers in Dorchester. And that's where your focus is a lot. Obviously, you're doing a bunch of other stuff, but just getting specialized, right? Specialize in one thing, specialize in one marketing channel, nothing else. Just be amazing at it. In the next 2 years, just be the absolute best in your market at it. And your market could be a town, could be a neighborhood, right? And then you kind of add to it. Basically, a lot of people don't say that. You're right. A lot of people don't touch on that.
Correct, man. And it's not their fault, Yanni. I'll be honest, right? Because I'm a millennial. I'm an older millennial, right? I'm like 81. I'm like the first year. By some charts, I'm not a millennial, but whatever the case, I grew up in a digital age. I grew up in an age where we kind of started having this instant gratification mindset. Information is out there. If anything you want to know, you can instantly get it. And as a younger person, and I talked to a lot of people about this, but I overvalued my intelligence, thinking like, because I'm smart, I can do anything. But it's like I said before, it's the skill development. And so with that mindset and kind of thinking about that, I really neglected to, as we said, go deep. But now that I have that understanding, and one thing I wanted to kind of go back to is, if you look at other generations, right? Previous generations to my generation, they all were more specialized because there wasn't all this stuff out there. There wasn't all this exposure to this information overload, and you can just jump in here, jump in there. That's, I used to sell stuff on eBay and all kind of other business. I had a couple startups I launched, like all kind of, correct. You know what I mean? And that just wasn't the mindset of the previous generations. I was listening to one of my buddies, talk. He's a, broker, same age as me, and his dad was a real estate broker. And he said when his dad was coming up, Newton agents, if they had a listing in Boston, they referred to a Boston agent. And Boston agents back then, they wouldn't list stuff in Newton or Natick.
Right. Yeah.
Refer back out. And so from that perspective, we kind of shifted away from that because we'll take on anything. Now I got a license, I can do it all. Right. But there is value in being a specialist. And that's another thing I really wanted to drive home. And that's why now you kind of, if you look at anything I'm promoting, it's primarily about lending. I'm going deep on lending. I'm committed to it. It's something I'm very passionate about. It's a lane I really enjoy, and it brings a lot of value to a lot of different developers out here and investors. So I'm really excited to be able to do that at this juncture. It took me 20 years to get there, but I got here. And, that's why I say be patient with yourself, to anyone out there listening as well. Just be patient with the process.
Be patient is the most important thing, even for us every day with Whiteacre, is the first goal is don't blow up, right? Stay 10, 20, 30 years.
I love it. Yeah, man.
Because there's just so much noise out there, and there's just too many ways of succeeding, actually. And it's okay. Just pick one, right? Now, as someone, maybe a viewer, but someone comes to you, someone you haven't worked with as an investor, he's done the right things, right? He's got a deal off market, hopefully with some equity at the right price and all that. How do you, what are some ways that you, with your experience, with your background, add value to that particular deal as a lender on the commercial, on the commercial lending side?
Yeah, no. So that's a great question, Yanni. I mean, there's many ways, right? Like we work with borrowers in different capacities. I think on the most obvious front, like I recently talked to a new investor, and he didn't even know what an interest reserve was. He's like on the second flip, and that's just like common. A lot of people have never heard of that. So like I really first and foremost try to gauge where they're at, like kind of what level they're at in the game. And then from there, I try to bring as much value as possible, whether it's talking about an IR, really making sure they button down their rehab budget, their scope of work, like knowing their comps are tight, like who's on your team, who's your realtor, who's your contractor, like get down into the weeds step by step, because I really want to set up my borrowers for success. This isn't about, I want to make a quick buck. I want to build relationships. And so the first piece from my underwriting side is that I just really vet the deal and vet the borrower, not from an angle of rejecting the deal, but to make sure we can fill those voids and fill those gaps. Because really, sometimes it's just changing one team member can be the difference between you making a profit and you falling on your face and failing on your first deal or second deal, So I really want to try to help borrowers avoid that. And then in addition to that, I think the strength that I have, that I speak with a lot of borrowers about, is how to find the next deal, right? Like I own a brokerage. We do a ton of off-market prospecting. And so sometimes we can source that deal for them, or we can at least advise them on how they can source deals, whether it's through the network, whether it's through cold calling. A lot of stuff we're going to be talking about tonight, direct mail, like the different strategies that I've used to actually source my flips, listings for my brokerage and the development projects that I work on. Like that deal that we on Alexander Street, that came from a letter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it works, right?
No,
Direct mail.
100%.
So like there's many different ways to do it. But I think that's another value proposition that I bring to the scenario when I speak with my borrowers about, okay, what's going on? Like, all right, what's your game plan? Where are you at? And then, I try to meet them where they're at, Yanni, because sometimes finding that next deal conversation is not, the head's not there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I
course.
just feel them out and kind of try to give them what they need to succeed on the deal and grow the business.
No, I love that. So much to unpack there, actually. But one thing, you're absolutely right. And that's something we learned early on is whether it's a hard money lender, there's actually a ton of value from those types of lenders because your interests are aligned. As a borrower, it could be your first project. Someone that knows the business, that knows enough to tell you you're doing this wrong.
Yep.
That person, that lender, saved you months and months of work, costs, headache, brain damage, whatever. Saved you, right? Because your interests are aligned. You want your borrower to succeed. You want to make your interests, etc. But you want to get paid in the end. You don't want a half finish or 20%. Yeah, it's that's not fun.
Exactly.
someone sends you a deal. What's a hell yes? What does it look like? You mentioned team, having your package together, but what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, a hell yes deal. I'll be honest, right? Like, I like working with established luxury developers, right? So I do a lot in Newton. We're doing more in Wellesley, Brookline. Like, those are the markets I'm in now. Really helping larger developers grow their business and come up with creative ways to finance projects. Sometimes there's a lot of seller financing involved on those bigger deals, and we, leveraging creativity to ensure that we can get a deal done, right? They still got to bring a little bit of money to the table, but, we can definitely lower that threshold depending on the experience level and then how much equity is on the back end of the deal. So those are the easy ones. And then I think overall, like generally speaking, experienced borrowers, maybe on your third or fourth flip, and you got a track record of performing at a higher velocity, right? You can just get stuff done, man. Like, guys who show up every day on the project, on the site, are the ones who are, keeping everyone accountable. And it shows. You'll see that, from start to finish. If someone's showing up, is diligently there, just, again, you don't have to be an asshole about it. Like, you just literally, I tell us young investors, show up. Yeah, like 99% of it, just be on site. And if people aren't there, call them and find out what the game plan is, just to keep them accountable. And so that they know, like, if they don't show up when they say they are, someone's going to be there to check. Because one day turns into 2 days, turns into 3 days, and it has a compounding effect on dragging your project on, and you become less profitable. So, like, fundamentally, it's funny, but those luxury developers, guys at that higher scale, they're there every day, Joni. They don't have anything else. They are specialists. Like, I'm working with a guy now. He's got 3 projects, 2 in Newton, 1 in Brookline. All day, he's right, those 3, right in the circle. He's just going around. And nothing else to it, you know what I mean? And so, whether it's on the luxury side or even on a smaller scale, the ones that I really am looking for are the guys who are locked in. This is what I'm going to do. And there's really nothing else. They're obsessed with getting that completed as quickly as possible.
Specialized skills, right? Going deep. That's huge. That is literally the perfect free market setup, because think about it, right? As a buyer, do you want to build? Do you want to buy from someone that's a builder in Boston, Worcester, and Wellesley, and is doing this random project, or are you someone that actually that's all he does? This
right.
High-end luxury. So it's literally perfect. That's where you add more value. It's not quick money, right? But that's, again, even as an agent, do you want an agent that works in that street, in that neighborhood? Luxury homes only, doesn't have 30 other projects from every from every price range you can think of.
Correct.
That's huge.
It is, man.
It's huge. And again, that's where you see success, especially in changing markets like this, right? You mentioned growing quickly, scaling, but also surviving and adapting, right? Where do you see your business in the next 20 years?
Good point, Joni. I mean, ultimately, I do want to grow the lending side and grow that into a larger fund. Right now with Crowd, I'm with Crowd Lending, they're great. It's been a great opportunity, great experience, and seeing them grow from a $10 million fund to almost a $200 million fund, right, in the course of 5 years. So it doesn't take long to compound if you kind of leverage, the capital you're able to bring in and the deal flow to appeal to a larger pool of investors. So, like, for me, 20 years from now, Joni, I think on 2 main fronts, I definitely want to have a fund that's, competing to be one of the top funds in the region. And then secondly, on the development side, I do want to own some larger developments, not necessarily in this region, but I do believe, that especially from the perspective of if you're bringing in enough liquidity, you've got to find a way to put that to work for the highest and best use. Not a big stock market guy. I'm a real estate guy, right? So I'd rather put that in a 200 unit somewhere in South Carolina, Florida, wherever it is, and get the right type of yield. It doesn't have to be the biggest return, because at the end of the day, once you get to a certain level, you're no longer chasing the liquidity. You're really building the wealth, right? Building wealth. And that's kind of where I'm transitioning to now, is looking to be more of a wealth creator as opposed to, kind of chasing dollars and just building on the liquidity front. So yeah, it's really the goal to really establish myself as a private lender and, a large scale investor, with, 1,000 doors or, 500 doors, somewhere in that range.
And then hopefully in 20 years, maybe we're investors or lenders with you as well, with your fund.
More the merrier. Let's do it, man. Or syndicating deals together. You know how it is, man. There's definitely a lot of avenues for folks to work together.
Kind of personal question last, 20 years, you're crushing it as one of the leading funds. You have a bunch of developments in great assets in great areas. Where does Rob spend his time, his week?
That's a great question, yeah. So, one of the things I'm passionate about is younger people. I have 4 kids, so they keep me very busy, and an amazing wife as well who makes it all possible. But, they'll be grown by that time. So, however I can give back, because it's just very important for me to either put content out there or create organizations that empower young, hungry people to have upward mobility. So I think, I know at some juncture of my life, once I'm done kind of chasing the business side of things, there's definitely going to be something that I create that really allows young people to come in and learn skills that will empower them to thrive and do well. Haven't fleshed that out fully, but it's just something I've always just been very passionate about. That's really why you see me over the years. I put out like 400 YouTube videos. They don't all get thousands of views or anything like that, but I did it from a space of educating folks who had a desire,
right,
to actually learn and take the time to listen. And if I could spark their interest, or if I could, say something to inspire them to keep going, then I feel like I'm kind of contributing to that bigger picture goal that I have for just, people in general. I always say lead from love. I don't care about political views. Like, I have my own views, and it differs from some and others, and you're like, oh, this guy is nuts. But at the end of the day, if you lead from love, I care about people. I care about, empowering folks to have their best lives, especially people who are willing to put in the work.
Love it.
And so that really is where I see myself in 20 years beyond real estate.
No, it's awesome. How can people find out about you? Websites, Instagram, all that good stuff.
I'm easy to find, man. So at Robert L. Nichols on Instagram, like, you can DM me on there. That's probably the easiest way to get to me. You can also check out my website, rlncompanies.com. We got plenty of free resources, letters, pro formas, and different templates people can use. I wrote a couple ebooks to kind of help folks just get going. At $9.99, it's nothing, man. People always, I want to pick your brain. I'm like, here, $10, here's everything I've learned along my journey. And you can kind of get going with that. And so I wrote 2. One's about hard money, how to master the money to master the game. Then the other one is how to flip your way to freedom. That kind of really journeys my experience as a flipper. And that's really it, man. Those are really the 2 main places that folks can connect.
And do that. It's free. It's or $9.99. So it's just the mindset of taking the action, right? Taking the
That's
step.
right.
Just show up at the events. Go on Instagram, follow you, engage and reach out for sure. That's the least you can do, right? That's step 1.
Absolutely, man. Yep.
This was a lot of fun. I'm really grateful and thankful for this conversation and for knowing you. So that's awesome.
Likewise, man. And I've seen you guys come up, man. Congratulations on your success. I know it's only the beginning of the journey, man, and I'm looking forward to the great things to come.
Same. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Good stuff, man. Absolutely.